the government of politicizing the whole issue. On the back foot, but still keeping the aggressive stance, MK Stalin said that Pradhan thinks of himself as an arrogant king. Dharmendra Pradhan had said that the future of students is being jeopardized because of DMK's politics. To which MK Stalin replied that the education minister needs to be disciplined for this arrogance. Now upping the ante, the education minister called DMK's stance on the matter uncivilized and undemocratic. But Stalin called this an insult to the cause of the people of Tamil Nadu and not to the DMK or to him personally. Dharmendra Pradhan even went on to accuse the DMK of only building language barriers. To which the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister replied that no one can force them to implement the contentious three-language formula as part of the national education policy. But is the opposition to this more political than anything else? Dravidian parties claim that it imposes Hindi on students and that's something that they won't stand for. But the national education policy does not mandate Hindi at all. As part of the three-language policy, it only mandates 2 native languages or Indian languages and 1 English. The DMK government says that NEP infringes on the state's autonomy on education, which is a matter in the concurrent list, and the state should have the right to decide what languages can be studied, which is why they do not want to implement the three-language formula. But the fact is that the national education policy allows states to customize this implementation based on their unique needs. So the state is not losing out. This three-language policy is also seen as a burden on school kids by the DMK, which is why they want to stick to the 2-language policy that currently is in place. The centre, though, maintains that this policy and its restructuring allows for more flexibility both for the state, for the teachers and for the students involved as well. Now, in 2021, the then BJP government in Karnataka had implemented the national education policy. While the Congress mulls to replace it, so far there has been not any real action over this. And this is something that was pointed out by the education minister today, that why is there only one state in the south that seems to have an opposition to the national education policy? The KCR government in Telangana had implemented NEP in 2020 when it came into effect. It has remained constant in the state of Andhra Pradesh as well, even though we've seen a change of government from an opposition leader in the YSRCP government, which is Jagan Mohan Reddy, to now a BJP ally, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu. The left government in Kerala has developed a new curriculum in lieu of the national education policy. So it only leaves Tamil Nadu in the southern states that has outrightly rejected the implementation of the national education policy. It remains headstrong as far as the 2-language formula goes. And that's something that they're now fighting for. This comes in the wake of over the last 2 weeks that the Chief Minister has been talking about this entire Hindi imposition and the language storm that has now spilled over into the parliament as well. But who exactly is blackmailing for their politics? That's what we ask on Plain Speak tonight.
The honorable member who raised the question, she also came to see me with honorable Education Minister of Tamil Nadu. They agreed, they went back, they have a U-turn. It is their problem.
Tamil Nadu never accepted a new education policy because we are against the 3-language policy for our students. We feel that Tamil Nadu has been doing very well, extremely well. We have implemented the breakfast scheme, the no meal scheme. We ensure that the children are studying. And if you consider throughout the Indian level, the level of Tamil Nadu students going to higher education is the highest.
We will not accept not only the 3-language formula, the other things also are there. So I think every state need not go behind the union government, whatever the decision they take and implement, we run behind them and getting money means we are not going with begging balls.
Once they say third language, the third language inevitably will be Hindi. They will say that Tamil Nadu does not have adequate Hindi teachers. So since we are funding it, we will send Hindi teachers from the north of India, and these Hindi teachers will come and distort our culture.
किसी भी मंदिर में चले जाइए, तमिल के मंदिर में चले जाइए, तेलुगु के मंदिर में चले जाइए, कन्नड़ के मंदिर में चले जाइए, सभी जगह संस्कृत में ही पूजा होता है। चुनाव हारने के डर से ये न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी का विरोध कर रहे हैं।
Let's open this up to our guests who join us on Plain Speak. Kalyan Raman, BJP leader from Tamil Nadu, is with me here in the studio. Lakshmi Ramachandran, spokesperson of the Congress, is with us. Pularao, political analyst, and Sagar Srivastava, chairman and founder of EduDag, which is a direct admission global, joins us here as well. Let me first ask Mr. Pularao. This opposition to the national education policy has been a long-standing one as far as the DMK and the Tamil Nadu government is concerned. We're now seeing it spill over into the parliament as well. But why is it that the DMK is calling the education minister a liar when the national education policy does not mandate Hindi at all as a third language?
Yes, and arrogant also. They called him arrogant because he has used unparliamentary language today. You know, Poonam, there are a list of phrases in parliament compiled, unparliamentary words. He used it. He says you're uncivilized. That is, a minister should be more reserved. A minister should be more subdued. Minister should be persuasive. The DMK or XMK or anybody can't help it if the central minister who wields enormous power wants a one-way traffic. It doesn't work like that. I am so sorry that so far, to my knowledge, in the last 20 years, 30 years, no minister in the government of India has said take it or leave it. And you're doing that, you're doing that. Is it a quote? Are you quoting precedents that you get decisions you want? You have to persuade them. I am not here to say he is right, he is wrong. He may be right, but you have to persuade them. Where are your persuasive skills? Instead of that, he attacks them.
So what exactly is the objection then, Mr. Pularao? The way in which the education minister has been speaking, or that the national education policy is a problem?
Very simple. Their objection is, we want a two-language formula, and that is their objection. You find it wrong? Should you not try to find a middle ground? Should you not try and, instead of saying you're wrong? And my friend Mr. Kalyan Raman, I only want to ask him with great politeness and respect, why should the Tamil Nadu BJP support anything which is against your interests or some parties? The Northeast BJP parties don't support various diet rules, other rules, religious rules, all that. You should say the central minister should persuade them if his ground is strong. He can't hector and say, you accept it, this is bad, 2 + 2 is 4. We all know those arguments. So I believe he has already spoiled his case by not having the gravitas and the high command of a central minister. When he calls others' names, they'll call him back. You can't use the word uncivilized.
Sure, and I mean, if we have an eye for an eye, the whole world's going to go blind. So that's really not the approach we'd want. But Mr. Kalyan Raman, I also want to ask you this. As far as the DMK is concerned, they have been insisting, and their opposition goes long back, not just to 2020 when the NEP came into being. But the fact is that the NEP does not mandate Hindi anywhere. There used to be an earlier formula which had said Hindi should be the third language, but that was done away with. Why do you think then we see this opposition time and again every few weeks, every few months?
Well, if you look at the way the issue is being raised, it is in a situation where the incumbent government, that is the DMK government, is at the receiving end on multiple facts, including law and order situation and the failure of governance, the amount of debts the Tamil Nadu government has accumulated for Tamil Nadu, etc. So, in order to cover up their failures, they are racking up issues like, number one, the NEP, number two, the delimitation, and there are small trivial things also. Here we have to go and look at the two basic policies of national education policies, 1968 and 1986, both by the Congress. In both these cases, it was insisted that the Hindi shall be the third language. On the contrary, the NEP 2020 does not say that. Instead, it says there shall be a third language. It can be seen as in the larger interest of the nation. So, why DMK is insisting here that we will not look at it with the national interest? That is the question. DMK has always been traditionally an anti-national party boasted by the British government. If anybody has to go through the historical facts of the case, it's just that everybody is ignoring this fact and trying to look at the situation. Anything that is anti-national is what is the forte of DMK, and that is what the Congress is also supporting. The Congress, which had introduced the policies of 1968 and 86 later, has no locus standi whatsoever to talk about the NEP or insistence on third language, etc. We are insisting on third language, not Hindi per se. So why should they be so concerned about it? I fail to understand.
But the approach that's been taken by the education minister is also something that's of a concern. First, when he came out and said that funds will be stopped unless NEP is implemented in the state, and now this. Why are you shortchanging the state government for taking a stance is what the DMK and other Dravidian parties like the AIADMK, Vijay's TVK are all asking. Is that not a fair question to ask?
It's a pure politics that they are indulging in. We are talking about 20 different headings under which the funds are allocated by the central government. If you look at, if you go through the historic factors, the funds allotted by the Congress, which saw the expenses towards education is expenses, not investment, used to pay less than 3% of the budgetary allocation, whereas after BJP came to power, it is 4.6%. The NEP 2020 says it shall be up to 6%. We are inching closer to that over a period of time in the last 10-11 years. We have improved upon it from less than 3% to 4.6%. All these factors will have to be seen while looking at the national education policy, which is aimed at the critical thinking, communication skills, skill development, digital education. There are so many things under which the government is funding. One heading under which the government refused to give fund because the incumbent government, that is the DMK government, had indeed agreed in writing to the central government that this is the thing that we agree to work with you, and then they refused to implement it. Hence,
so what explains that U-turn? And Pulara, I'll come to you, but Lakshmi Ramachandran is also patiently waiting. So let me ask you this, ma'am: is the Congress on board with the NEP or no?
Good evening. See, first thing is denying a state funds for school education. That's 2,000 crores, which will affect 4 million students. Is unprecedented. It has never happened. It's anti-people. In fact, that move is more anti-national than anything else. See, if two-language policy is what Tamil Nadu has been following for many decades, and we have been showing good results, in school education. Our GER is high. All other educational outcomes are very good. Then how can central government deny us funds just on the basis of this one policy? Is that right? Is it not something that is concerning the future of our children? And the kind of, as Sir was mentioning, they are not willing to listen to the arguments being put forth by the state government. Here in Tamil Nadu, all parties except BJP Tamil Nadu are against three-language policy. And there is a strong reasoning given for this. There are many states that are claiming that they have been following three-language policy. Tell me what is the third language that was taught in Gujarat or Maharashtra or Uttar Pradesh or Bihar. Maybe they are saying it in paper, but what is the third language? What is it that these children are learning, and they have accomplished some level of proficiency in all these years? So the two-language policy has sound pedagogical and practical.
Sure, but there is evolution, and we've seen our policies change. The same is going on with education policy as well. If 8 out of 10 states, for example, have implemented something, there must be something that's right as far as that policy goes. And if the major objection is that the third language is a way of imposing Hindi, where does the NEP document say Hindi is mandatory?
No. Two things. Three
here I would like to make a small request.
Just a second.
For many decades. Three-language policy has been the government's policy for many decades, not just the BJP governments. The other states claim to have implemented the three-language policy, but what is the third language? Nobody has ever told us what is the third language that Bihar or Uttar Pradesh or Maharashtra or Gujarat have.
So can we then know, can we have this data? Ms. Ramachandran, can we have then this data from the 3 Congress ruled states that have NEP at the moment as we speak? Karnataka, Himachal and Telangana.
You're asking me?
Yes.
You have to ask the respective state governments what is the third language that the governments have implemented.
But they've implemented it and they've not raised these
It is
questions.
the authority of the state government to decide which will be the third language, not the center. If it is clearly barging and raising concerns about preserving regional linguistic identities, you are totally barging the region. I mean,
But Sagar Srivastava-
Tamil Nadu takes care of the burden of North Indian students. South India takes care of the burden of North Indian students. Where the stats goes there, and then the question arises in the clear demarcation: what would be the preserving regional linguistic identity? Who is going to do that? If the state chief minister, if the state heads are not aligning with it, this has been previous concern as well. And what a mock, how pity it is that education minister is taking some serious tabooic language, below the belt unparliamentary language. Probably he should consider moral science first as his academia, rather than in parliament he's taking some very strong turn. So apprehensions can go one on one. If I agree on something at 2, I may disagree at 5. This is hard politics. Diplomacy and delicate and delegation is very much needed. How come he is quoting closed door meetings in front of public, in front of parliament? This is really, I mean, more than anything, the language used in parliament is why in the first iteration he got provoked. Was he not prepared enough?
Sure,
Was he not prepared enough?
Sagar Srivastava, the language in which the education minister has been speaking,
as an individual,
yes, you can take objections to those, but Sagar Srivastava, please, let me ask you this.
Your education minister get instigated in first 30 seconds.
Sure,
Are you okay with it?
It's
Are you
not
okay
for
with
me
it?
to
And
answer.
He's the one who chairs the drafting committee.
Sure, but the objection,
the
the
NEP
provocation, Sagar Srivastava, if you can just let me ask my question, please.
Sure.
The objection of Tamil Nadu against implementing NEP is because of the 3-language formula, yes? Because they say this is a backdoor attempt of getting Hindi in.
Exactly.
Where is the proof of that?
Where is the proof of that? I mean, just for an example, I put someone who is not familiar with your culture, with your customs in your house. How far are you going to go align with it? Just think about it. It's the country of
But nobody is asking you to learn Hindi.
No. If you're giving, no. First of all, it can be, will you be allowing the vice versa thing to happen? No. The preference.
What do you mean by that? The vice versa is happening in every other state. The state decides what subjects can be used as a third language. And like I said, if 8 out of 10 states have implemented it, there must be something that's right with it.
Preserving regional linguistic identity and culture heritage. Madam, with all due respect, the most spoken language and the national language is 2 different words.
Sure.
The most spoken language is Hindi, and the national language is we don't have any national language.
Correct.
So on that, I want to quote a fact that we don't have a national language, and it is to empower the state bodies. The center has many better jobs to do rather than intervening in these matters.
But the center is not intervening. The NEP gives the state the rights to decide what language can be used for the third language.
NEP promotion of public-private partnership and foreign universities could lead to commercialization of education. Critics worry that this may widen the gap between well-funded institution and marginalized community. Are we prepared to create an academia of India A to India B to India C?
Why should we not aim to better infrastructure? To ensure that A, B and C do not get categorized.
Who going to be the beneficiary of the better infrastructure? Are
the students of the
School of
state.
Economics, Columbia,
The students of the state.
Coming to India, they don't gonna be the cash cows. Are the Gurgaon and the Koramangalam and the Bangalore MNCs? They don't take the profits. It's all the game. It's about
the students' future. Where they get placed and which MNC makes money is a fallout of what happens.
What is the definition of
So
the
are you
student?
saying should we not prepare our students at all to face the world?
Well, then what is the definition of the future? No, all I'm saying is the ideological biases. Opponent also argues that the emphasis on Vedic studies and yoga signals a move towards saffronization of the curriculum. They contend that this could distort education content and compromise balanced secular learning. This is saffronization. I mean, policy, the best school of the world is Harvard Kennedy Public Policy. And it clearly tells that tweaking on policies may result on certain gains, but on a larger impact, it can have certain demerits. Can anyone speak about the demerits? if Tamil Nadu is doing fairly fine, not fairly fine, one of the apex level when it comes to education, there are institutions which are taking burdens of North Indian states like Bihar, UP, and all the Northeast, and from Jammu and Kashmir to Haryana, to Uttar Pradesh, to Rajasthan. Why we are, intervening in some way that is not aligning with the state thing? You win on Tamil Nadu and you take on the accordance just like you did in Delhi. Now, the third thing is, critics says the center use of funding as leverage forces NEP reforms undermining state control over education. This approach is seen as an infringement on federal principle and local autonomy.
Sure. So, Kalyan Raman, the problem is that the central government is trying to have way too much influence. That is one. B, that the education minister is using blackmailing tactics, is using unparliamentary language, and that's not the way to go forward.
Thank you so much, Poonam, for stating on the national media.
Sure. Shada Srivastav, you had your time. Let him answer, please.
First of all, let's understand. Sagar speaks about Harvard and all, but let me go back to Swami Vivekananda, who says we want education by which character is built, strength of mind is increased, the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own leg. End of all, education must be man-making. He also went on to say, education is the manifestation of perfection which is already in man. Here we are looking at a holistic education which will give the strength to the nation in every individual school students. We are not just limiting ourselves to the infrastructure building, but also expanding it to the growth of character, knowledge, the ability for an individual to lead his own self, in the sense it shall be a wholesome man-making education. We also had another person saying that we want a class of people Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, opinion, moral and intellect, that is Macaulay. The Congress implemented what Macaulay wanted. It continued until their last ministry, that is 2014. And it has to be changed to suit the Indian purpose. It has to be made for India to grow beyond the limitations of just English education, for which whether we need Vedic education or not, whether you call it as saffron or saffron is the color of this nation. Can anyone deny that? Just because some English speaking people like Sagar had come to play some role in the field of education, it does not mean that there cannot be Vedic education or saffronization.
That's not the secular way of education. That's the allegation. Is that allegation not true?
Where Vedic education becomes saffronization or anything else, it is Indianization is saffronization. What is the problem with it?
So that is the problem as far as
the saffron education itself is secular
aspect of the country.
If you have to go through it, the saffron education itself is secular. That's why Rigveda says, let noble thoughts come to us from every side. We are not an Abrahamic religion which says that one book, one God, one prophet. We believe in everything, including Allah and Jesus.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Kalyan Raman. Should the government, the central government,
understand the perception of India.
Should
there is enough room for Jesus and Allah in Hinduism. That is what Muhammad said.
Take a more softer stance, perhaps, to persuade Tamil Nadu to come on board.
What is softer or harder? I don't understand.
Because the issue is also with the kind of language, the kind of words, or the withholding of funds is concerned. That's the problem that the state government also has with.
If the body language of one person, that is the Honorable Education Minister, has any problem, that's a different question altogether.
But that seems to be holding this.
How does it come in the way of policy? Who are you to object to it? Just because there is a body language, just have an objection to it.
It is the main
there can be a deliberation.
Okay, so
I saw Pulla Rao ji saying that with due respect to him.
Okay, I'm running short of time, but Pulla Rao, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Body language is everything.
Okay,
body
so if the center
was to, is not policy, please.
Mr. Raman, just a second, and Pulla Rao, please let me ask you the question I want to ask you.
Where are we?
Pulla Rao, as far as the central government is concerned, if they were to take a more persuasive stance that the DMK wants, like you've been also saying, is the state government then willing to negotiate? Because everybody has to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, perhaps. Not if one sticks to their stand, why shouldn't the other?
Diplomacy and negotiation have endless options. It's endless. You have to start it. You have to start it. My friend Kalyan Raman says the body language is everything.
No, sorry, I disagree, sir. Policy cannot be body language.
No, what is that?
Policy cannot be body language. You know, you are a much learned person than me.
An education
But
minister of
Pullarao,
the
it
union
seems
minister.
like it's my way or the highway for the state government as well. Which is why I asked
No,
that if
no.
there was a more persuasive stance, would the state
state
government then come to the talking table
the
and
state
try and
government has to-
redraw
By
what
the
they've
way,
been saying?
There's one small snippet I just want to draw your attention to. Just now it has come out, Tamil Nadu is leading in all indicators. 3.5 lakhs is their annual income
Sure.
for Tamilian.
And
the
no one's
great
denying
Maharashtra
that.
state is only 2.80. They're doing okay.
Sure,
Think
no
they
one's
have some-
denying
They're
that.
doing something right. They're doing something right. Persuade them. That's the job of the government.
Sure.
Did Manmohan Singh talk like that? P.V. Narasimha Rao talk like that? They did enormous things.
Sure.
Enormous things. P.V. Narasimha Rao was the
Unfortunately, I'm
education
completely
minister.
out of time and I have to leave it there. But this controversy clearly exploding by the day. And as we see the second half of the parliament, of the budget session begin, we're only going to see it escalate further, both inside and outside the parliament. I thank all our guests for joining us here on this edition of Plain Speak. It is time for a quick break. But on the other side, we'll get you details of what seems to be troubling Air India. This time it was clogged toilets on board a 10-hour flight and there was massive outrage over that. Air India, of course, coming out and clarifying. We'll get you details on the other side.
In first place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, with 131,674 votes, resulting in 29,457 allocated points, representing 85.9% of the vote.
My government will put into action our plan to build a stronger economy, to create new trading relationships with reliable trading partners, and to secure our borders. There's someone who's trying to do the opposite. There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't. We won't. The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect. The Americans want our resources, our water, our land, our country. Think about it. If they succeeded, they would destroy our way of life. In America, health care is a big business. In Canada, it is a right. America is not Canada. And Canada never, ever will be part of America in any way, shape, or form. Look, we didn't ask for this fight. We didn't ask for this fight. But Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves. So the Americans They should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will win. So Donald Trump thinks he can weaken us with his plan to divide and conquer. Pierre Poilievre's plan will leave us divided and ready to be conquered. Because a person who worships at the altar of Donald Trump will kneel before him, not stand up to him. I know that these are dark days. Dark days brought on by a country we can no longer trust. We are getting over the shock, but let us never forget the lessons. We have to look after ourselves, and we have to look out for each other. We need to pull together. When we come together, we build things that last because we are Canada strong. Vive la Canada! Merci tout le monde.
In first place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, with 131,674 votes, resulting in 29,457 allocated points, representing 85.9% of the vote.
My government will put into action our plan to build a stronger economy, to create new trading relationships with reliable trading partners, and to secure our borders.
Thank you for staying with us. You're on Plain Speak. Air India has landed in controversy yet again. An Air India flight en route to Delhi was forced to circle back to Chicago, reportedly after all but one of the plane's toilets were rendered unusable. Here's what exactly happened. The decision to turn the flight around was taken after 11 of the 12 lavatories in the flight became inoperable, leaving access to only one toilet for more than 300 passengers who were on board for about 10 hours. The decision was taken around 4.5 hours into the flight when the plane was somewhere over Greenland. The return took about equal amount of time, resulting in that 10-hour ordeal for the passengers. The airline confirmed that the flight made a U-turn after being airborne for about 5 hours, but they claimed that the decision was due to a technical issue. Air India, in fact, then issued a detailed statement over the matter. The airline claimed that AI-126 returned due to a technical issue. But what their teams found were polythene bags, rags and clothes that were flushed down and stuck in the plumbing of the lavatories. Bags and rags led to the lavatories being inoperable, is what Air India has come out and said. The decision to return back to Chicago was taken in interest of passengers. They also said that accommodation was given to these passengers to minimize any inconvenience that was caused. Alternate travel arrangements were also made for some of them. Either a full refund or cancellation was provided because of this inconvenience as well. Air India then went on to say that complimentary rescheduling was also offered to passengers who wanted to use that, then highlighting that safety and the well-being of the passengers was topmost priority for the airline. But this is not the first time that Air India has been in the middle of a controversy. It was just 2 days ago that an 82-year-old landed in a hospital after she fell at the Indira Gandhi airport here in the national capital. The family alleged that the elderly woman suffered the fall after she had to walk towards the flight gate because she was denied a wheelchair by the airline. Air India, however, turned down the allegation and claimed that there was a delay in providing the wheelchair due to unprecedented rush and because the family with the 82-year-old did not make it in time at the gate, and at no point was the elderly denied a wheelchair. Now, just last month, Union Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan had expressed anguish that he experienced during his Air India flight from Bhopal to New Delhi. He said he had to travel on a broken seat. Chauhan said that he was under the impression that Air India's service would have improved following the erstwhile government-owned carrier's takeover by the Tata Group, but that turned out to be a misconception. The airline, however, was quick to issue an apology and ordered an immediate inquiry. Shortly after that, another BJP leader, Jaiveer Shergill, came down heavily on Air India over broken seats and poor service. He in fact tagged them the worst airline. The very same month, DMK MP had criticized Air India after her business class seat on a Delhi-Chennai flight was downgraded to economy without any notice. The Chennai South Member of Parliament expressed her outrage, calling the incident absolutely unacceptable, also raised concerns over passengers' rights. So as turbulence hits Air India, the question we want to ask is, what exactly is the solution for their woes? Let's open this up. Air Commodore B.S. Sivach, Director General of Aviation Safety, is with us. Aviation expert DBS Gujral is with us as well. Air Commodore, let me begin by asking you, is this a one-off incident? Is this just a coincidence that so many incidents are coming to the fore as far as Air India is concerned just in the recent past?
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me. Now it is become kind of habit with Air India. Every second there is something or the other is taking place. Air India is almost every week in the news for wrong reasons. It is really shocking that such an illustrious airline has, the second largest airline in the country and the oldest airline, but the way it is functioning, it is really sort of totally unacceptable, and it brings a bad name to the country, bad name to the airline, bad for the reputation, bad for their economic viability, and I can see that they might lose even the customers to a large extent, because nobody likes to travel by an airline which has got problems. Every second day something or the other is happening. Sometimes there are labor issues, sometimes there are unrest, sometimes crew does something wrong, regulatory issue, and sometimes toilet issues, sometimes seats are not functional, sometimes technical issues, the aircraft returns. And now in this present case for which we are discussing, it's really surprising. 10 hours after 10 hours the flight returned. What a shame. How can people do such a thing? How can the management be so careless about it? It's not really done. Because I'm given to understand that before the flight departed, the crew was aware that some of the toilets are blocked, but I suppose they ignored it. And subsequently, after 10 hours, it became, so difficult for the airline to continue the flight that it had to return. Just imagine the amount of colossal loss to the airline in terms of 10 hours flying must have costed them crores. And of course, refunding the passengers, hotel accommodation. And what is that kind of reputation which has been ruined? So something definitely needs to be done on highest priority. DGCA and Minister of Civil Aviation has been at it. The airline has been fined a couple of times, even more than crore.
Right.
But still, they haven't really improved. Some serious problems are, existing with the airline. And sooner they do something, better it will be for them. Otherwise, we are going to be, losing this airline very badly. So that is the...
Right. Mr. Gujral, let me get you in as well. Air India has released some of these pictures along with that statement in which you can see clothes and rags. They say polythene bags were stuffed down the lavatories, which is what ended up clogging them. But if 11 out of 12 lavatories were clogged, and if there indeed was clothes and rags and polythenes that were flushed in, is that not also a security concern?
No, thank you very much for asking me also to join this debate. I would like to point out that the toilets in the aircraft, they work on suction system. It is quite possible that some of the passengers do not know how to use these toilets, and they put some kind of a material in the toilets which is sucked in, such as diapers or pieces of cloth as they have come out, and there is a common waste line, and in the event of one toilet getting blocked, it blocks the whole line, and as the aircraft continues, it became a very, very big problem. So there was no choice with the aircraft but to return back to Chicago, where the servicing facilities were available. And at the same time, it took about 5 hours to return. The aircraft was over Iceland at that time when it became very necessary to return back. And it was a very wise decision on the part of the commander to return back to Chicago, since we had the facilities of servicing available only at Chicago. Had he landed somewhere on the way, it might have been very difficult, if not impossible, to get the facilities to flush out the toilets. As far as the servicing of the aircraft at the major bases is concerned, whenever an aircraft reaches a base, the entire toilet system is flushed out, cleaned, and sometimes it happens that the passengers who are perhaps not aware of the consequences of their inept use of toilets by sending in the materials which should not be used in the toilets. In my opinion, this incident occurred only because perhaps some of the passengers they have used the inusable material in the toilets, which was sucked into the waste line.
Sure.
And the waste line for all the toilets is common. A waste line for all the toilets is common.
Sure.
And once blocked, there is very little that can be done in the air. So it was a very wise decision to get back to Chicago and have the line
Sure.
flushed.
So, Mr. Gujral, then in this particular
cleaned.
instance, maybe it was not the airline's fault completely. Of course, there's outrage over how it was handled, and there can be two views about it. But why is it that these kind of complaints, leaving aside this particular incident, we've heard several others in the recent past. Why is it that we hear so many complaints, so many issues with Air India particularly than any other airline?
No, sir. Being our national airline, right, it is any small incident which occurs along for Air India, it is highlighted more than necessary, which I feel personally. Being associated with this industry, I have been noticing various complaints about people, about the aircraft, about the difficulties passengers face. Aviation is a very transition stage. It is expanding leaps and bounds. There are bound to be small incidents here and there, which I think we should try to ignore and understand the problems of the airline as well as the regulatory authorities.
But you know, the issue also here is that from once being the national carrier, government run, it was then privatized, Air Commodore Savage. That's something that's being highlighted as well, that people thought that a lot of improvements will come in once it was privatized. But that's something that seems to have left a lot of loyal Air India customers disappointed. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, absolutely. Air India.
No, I would like to say
Air Commodore Savage.
Poor work culture. Very poor work culture before it was taken over. When Tata took over this airline, it was really in shambles. You know the amount of loss it was incurring, the work ethics of the organization. I'm not saying that 100%. There are very good people also in Air India. But largely you find that, it has been clearly displayed. It has been shown to everybody that they are lacking badly. That's why they ran into such massive losses. Poor management, poor work ethics, work culture. And when Tata took over, it was in shambles. Tata has been trying to improve upon this airline. They had taken a lot of bold and innovative steps, but still the kind of workforce they have, they are still not really very, the work culture definitely is not good. And that shows. Earlier also it used to be always in the news for wrong reasons, and now also every second day you can't say that. We would like to definitely protect. This is a very prestigious airline of our country. But how far can you? It is making headlines all over the world. So how can you try to sort of protect it, hide something from anybody? And definitely need to really pull their socks up, because if it continues, then this is very bad news for the airline and its management and for the country as a whole. This is the second biggest airline. They ordered large number of aircraft in future. They are working at it, but still the work, the management is not able to manage things in a very orderly fashion, very professional manner.
Both the Air India and the regulatory body, the DGCA, also has been working towards making this a more pleasant experience than what it has been. But unfortunately, these complaints keep coming up. I have to leave it there. I thank you both gentlemen for joining us here on this edition on the show and sharing your perspective. Shifting focus now to a significant moment in Canadian politics. The Liberal Party elected Mark Carney as its new leader, paving the way for him to succeed Justin Trudeau as the next Prime Minister, the man who leads them into elections later this year. He's a seasoned economist, he's a former central banker, he clinched a decisive victory. Carney not only navigated through crisis as the head of Central Bank, but is also largely credited for fast financial recovery post-2008. Mark Carney has won the bipartisan praise for his swift actions that enable lending crisis with 1% interest. But the road is not going to be easy for him. There are several issues and several challenges that he will have to encounter as Carney looks to pick up the ruins of diplomatic ties, specifically with India as well, and now the United States from Justin Trudeau. From Trump's trade war to the issue of reciprocal tariff and addressing the rising cost of living, inflation across the country is something that Justin Trudeau was struggling with, especially the housing crisis and the inflation as far as housing accommodation went. That's something that the Liberal Party has to now deal with. The ever so imminent threat of Khalistani radicals, the internal division within the party as well. Like I said, this is election year for them. So that's something that Carney has to address as well. Those are some of the many challenges that he will have to look at firsthand as he prepares to take over this new post.
Mark Carney will succeed Justin Trudeau as Canada's next Prime Minister. Official results on Sunday showed the former central banker won the race to become leader of the country's ruling Liberal Party. Carney will take over at a tumultuous time in Canada. A general election lies in the near future, and the country is in the midst of a trade war with longtime ally the United States under President Donald Trump, whom Carney name-checked after being announced as the party's leader.
There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Yeah. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed.
Carney also said that Canada's retaliatory tariffs would remain in effect, quote, until the Americans show us respect, and he seemed to respond to Trump's repeated taunts to annex Canada as a 51st U.S. state.
America is not Canada, and Canada never, ever will be part of America in any way, shape, or form.
Shifting focus back to India, and what we're given to understand is via top government sources is that India is negotiating with the United States. Remember, the tariff threat looms large over India as well, not just Canada. But what we're given to understand is that India has not committed anything yet to the United States. Remember, Donald Trump has been speaking about how doing business in India has been extremely restrictive because of high tariffs, and that's something that they want to do away with. Payal, my colleague, is now joining us, getting us more details. Payal, what more can you tell us about what you've gathered from your sources?
You know, the Trade and Commerce Secretary today deposed before a standing committee for external affairs, which is led by former Union Minister Dr. Shashi Tharoor. Essentially, the point that he's made is that the government has not finalized any trade deals so far. Negotiations are continuously on, but the fact of the matter remains that the Indian government is committed to the welfare of the people of the country and welfare to the trade and industry platforms across the entire nation. That's going to be on their priority, and any trade agreements or any agreements whatsoever in terms of tariff will be very mutually beneficial to both the states. Because remember, there was a joint, statement, which was a joint agreement that was agreed to by both President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and that's something which is they're going to abide by. So there is no reason for anybody to sweat right now, because we do understand that the negotiations are currently underway. Because remember, Poonam, a lot of members of parliament across both houses have in fact demanded a response from the government as far as this is really concerned. The standing committee is led by a member of the opposition parties, and the standing committee has discussed this, is what we're given to understand by way of sources. Of course, earlier in the committee meeting, you also had a discussion on multiple issues that were in fact addressed to by the foreign secretary, but those are not concerning India-US relationship, those are concerning India's neighborhood policy. But as far as India's relationship with the US is concerned, multiple naysayers have been pointing out fingers and saying that probably India has fallen prey and has not been able to stand up to the US. But those talks do not hold any value, is what we are able to understand from what the Trade Secretary briefed the Parliamentary Committee today.
Right, Payal, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. We'll keep a track of that and much more here on CNN News 18. But for now, it's a wrap from my side on Plain Speak.
Co-powered by
In first place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, with 131,674 votes, resulting in 29,457 allocated points, representing 85.9% of the vote.
My government will put into action our plan to build a stronger economy, to create new trading relationships with reliable trading partners, and to secure our borders. There's someone who's trying to do the opposite. There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't. We won't. The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show